Commerce Court challenge regarding the constitutionality and legality of continuous government bailouts for South African Airways has been rejected by the High Court.
So was this the case where David lost to Goliath? Free Market Foundation's Executive Director Louw joins us in studio now for more. Thanks so much, Leon, for your time this evening. So we've had Comair challenge the constitutionality of bailouts. The case has been dismissed. What have you read into the dismissal?
Well, there's two sides. One is jurisprudential, the law, and one is policy. It doesn't save it, and judgment's not there to do this, from being crazy to continue bailing out a manifestly insolvent, bankrupt airline, and to do so at the expense of the poor. One must understand the money was budgeted to be spent on social services and on housing and healthcare and so on, and was diverted from expenditure on the poor to expenditure on the rich, namely the management, the lawyers, the legal team, and people who fly. So this is a really quite a despicable transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. And it's sad to see that the court couldn't find a way of stopping it. Whether it is legally correct remains to be seen, because this is, for example, in breach of the fact that the government budgeted the money for something else. It's in breach of its own policy. What the judgment appears to say is that the government can make policy and make promises and then just ignore itself. So members of the ANC in Parliament should call them to account and say, what's going on here? Why do ministers in smoke-free rooms secretly and privately without any accountability or public consultation or logic or arguments even? In fact, the arguments in the heads of argument have been muzzled. You don't know them in the media. You should be outraged that this is being kept a secret. It is actually really quite a despicable state of affairs.
Well, Leon, we are outraged, but we'd also like, we tried to get Comair in today, but they're still pouring through those 78 pages, so they're coming to chat to us tomorrow. But can you tell us, can you read anything into the fact that the case was dismissed with no cost? Is there any significance to that?
Yes, it probably means, in my former incarnation as a lawyer, if I can say, it probably means that the judge is of the view that there was a legitimate case to bring. It wasn't a frivolous case. It wasn't clearly an unwarranted case. And there may even be a prospect of changing tack, bringing the same argument in a different way, or maybe succeeding on appeal.
Or to a higher court? Or
to go on appeal to a higher court. Or, for example, bringing in a public interest action by someone like ourselves. So it does seem as if the judge maybe was unhappy with the conclusion he reached on law, and didn't feel as if the government should get away with this reckless waste of money, and just because of maybe some legal technicality.
Do you see this changing anything? Because again, this shines the spotlight on governance within parastatals and funding or guarantees circumventing due process at the end of the day.
Yes, I think this might be, as I've said from the beginning, what's called in law the art of the losing case. You don't always bring a case expecting to win. You bring a case to bring about a change in public opinion, to get people aware of it. People like you are now covering it and helping the public understand the scam that is taking place. So even without the judgment, a great deal has been achieved in terms of media coverage, public awareness, public education. And I hope that people like you will say, this is outrageous. You cannot keep the heads of argument. You cannot keep... just imagine what they're covering up. Think about it. What we know about SAA is 30 billion diverted from the poor down the tubes. What we know about SAA is this hopelessly bankrupt airline. What we know about it is it runs so-called strategic routes to places that it eventually decides it shouldn't have done in the first place, and so on. So what is hidden from us must be even worse. Now, is it corruption? Is it losses on a grander scale than we really know? The SAA accounts are almost impossible to understand, so we don't really even know if it's 30 billion, could be more, could be less. And so I would say that a lot has been accomplished in bringing about awareness and concern, and maybe, even without the judgment, an end to this nonsense.
I mean, Leon, I know your thoughts on state-owned enterprises, and there appears to be two sets of rules clearly here, one for SAA and one for everybody else in the aviation industry. Do you have any hope that under the new management and some of the turnaround strategies they are coming out with, that SAA can be turned into a viable state-owned enterprise?
Absolutely not. It has been turned around so often they're far too dizzy to do anything sensible. Another turnaround strategy just means they're facing in the direction they first came from. So no, the problem is that a state-owned enterprise inherently cannot be efficient or competitive for all sorts of reasons. You can put Eric Venter, who runs Comair well, in charge of SAA, and it will be a disaster.
Transnet are an efficient industry?
It's called an institutional problem, not a management problem. It's not bad management. It's institutionally not viable and should be scrapped, and especially since private airlines, we are the most loved country in the world. The idea that we have anything strategic was an argument under apartheid for a criminal regime. And any airline in the world will be happy to run in every transport route we want at a much lower cost and efficiently and competitively. We should really stop spending money on the rich that was budgeted for the poor.
Well, on that note, let's leave it there. Thanks so much, Leon, for having joined us in studio this evening.
Louw is Executive Director of the Free Markets Foundation.